Ryan, you covered South by Southwest, did you not? Sort of.
I did not.
You did not, sort of, but you got
not really
some of their films.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
One of which I knew about, but which I did not get a chance to see until it opened 2 days ago in theaters. It's called X, and it is a difficult film to categorize.
Well, I mean, it's exploitation cinema from the 70s.
Right. Done with a certain 21st century flair.
Sure.
But no, okay. So written and directed by Ty West, starring Mia Goth, who I believe we both love.
Yeah.
She's great. Jenna Ortega, Brittany Snow are our three female leads. Yeah, it's an exploitation film. The first half of the film is a sexploitation film
with a little black exploitation in there.
With a little black exploitation in there as well. And then it becomes a Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque 70s slasher.
Sure. The southern
small town backwood hillbilly
hillbilly
kind of thing going on there. So yes, this group of people travels to middle of nowhere Texas to attempt to film a better porn, air quotes. It can have porn, but it can be better than that.
I think only one of them, and that is the cinematographer, is really interested in making something artsy.
Right.
I think everyone. So he's the artsy guy.
Yes.
And that actually kind of comes into play later on in the film in a way.
Yes.
But yes, he's going to shoot it at strange angles and cut it strange, and it's going to be very European. So it's a classic,
right,
skin flick or whatever. I don't know, whatever he calls it, but yes. So
good.
But I was going to say, but this is all kind of, so you have two women who work as topless dancers in one man's club, and the man has decided that he's a get rich schemer and always has been, and this is just his latest scheme, that they are going to do this. And what I thought was interesting, at one point they mentioned they're doing it for the home,
right? The home video.
Yeah. So, and I believe this is set in 79. So I don't know exactly when VHS and whatever kicked off, but it had to be a year or two later. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, so I'd have to look at that. But yes, he's actually kind of cutting edge. And in porn was one of the driving forces that made VHS what it is,
yes,
or what it was. So that there's some interesting and kind of smart stuff going on in there. Not that we ever know if the porn movie gets released, although we can guess. And but yeah, so a bunch of amateurs go into the heart of conservative Texas and decide that they're just going to make a porn film without letting the people who they've rented the property from, and that's problematic because the people who they've rented the property from also live on the property.
Yep. And yeah, they're not gonna tell him, and it's this old man and his old wife, and yeah, man, the trailer I don't think really did this movie justice.
Yeah, I don't know.
In that it is kind of clever and meta in a lot of ways. It does tell us before the movie changes why the movie can't change but can change, because they're talking about their movie after an event.
Yeah.
It's I think if people can get past the sex and the violence, of which there is a lot, well, there's a lot of sex and then there's a lot of violence. So they actually don't mix. It's not like Friday the 13th where you get killed having sex.
No, but there is a very creepy moment that happens in the bed.
Yes, that is also true.
Which I think is which in itself in a modern environment is an assault. And
Yes.
so I thought that was kind of an interesting little, I don't know if it's a bridge or anyway. Will the art house crowd pick up on this? I don't know. I mean,
I think they, if anyone is going to, it's going to be them, because I don't know that this film is wide, has a bigger appeal in a wide sense other than kind of cult horror movie people. This isn't a Scream that's going to get wide play. This isn't even a Nightmare on Elm Street that's going to get wide play or wide acceptance, I should say.
No, it's you're right there, and then the question becomes, will a horror audience put up with an hour before anyone, an hour of that's not a horror movie? It may be a thriller at times, but it's not a horror movie for at least the first hour.
Well, what's funny is that a few weeks ago, I actually
at least in the violent way, anyway. Yeah.
Right, a few weeks ago or a month ago or so, I actually finally, for the first time, watched the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
which is radically different than most people think. Yes,
and so I didn't know. I mean, I knew Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Yeah. And so I went in. I wasn't. You can't help but see, the dancing with the thing at the end, the slamming of the big metal door, but really you don't see a lot of the movie. There's like those two scenes, and everyone knows Leatherface, and that's pretty much it. Mm-hmm. So I watched it, and I was just like, I got done. I'm like, I don't know that this film is actually any good, except for what it ushered in.
Well, and I would argue that the way that it's shot, I would argue there's a lot of things that I do think are good about it, but I don't think it is what it isn't. It certainly isn't the movie that a lot of people seem to think it is.
Right.
In the same way that a lot of people apparently thought Blade Runner was an action movie. And so when you get in that case, when you got the sequel and it wasn't an action movie, people are, well, what's going on? This isn't. It's like, well, did you watch the first one? Well, I saw parts of it.
Yeah, no.
So no. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre probably fits in that as well. And it's.
I don't want to say it was bad. Don't get me wrong.
No,
it was definitely. It was not what I was thinking.
No, it's not what the films that came in the franchise afterwards suggest that it is.
Or even, like I said, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is better as a harbinger of what came in the genre later. And so, and the reason I mentioned that is because for that whole vibe I got from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the vibe that you get from the first half of this. I mean, minus the porn, because there's no porn in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's just people walking around whining a lot. But the tone and the shot and the feel of it is very much that original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But so you get that, and then
same dynamic.
And then it becomes more. I almost got and I know you're going to have the reference that I really want. As soon as I say this, I got more of the X-Files episode Family for the second half of this than anything else, than any modern horror that I could put my finger on. Because it's not Friday the 13th, it's not Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's also got this weirdly supernatural feel to it, even though there is nothing supernatural going on here, but it had that feel to it. So it felt to me like the X-Files episode, even though that's a horrific episode and I love it to death. It's a wonderful episode of television. But that's the feel I got in the second half of the film. So it's a very weird mix. It's very hard to put in a box. If it gets any traction, I think it really does have to be through the art house people. Because like I said, it's not a thriller. It's not It's not just a straight thriller. It's not a horror movie all the way. I mean, so it's like half a horror movie. It's like half a thriller. Um, it's all good. It's just a very unique kind of construction going on here. And I think that's going to make it unpalatable to some people that might otherwise be able to appreciate the pieces of it.
I think it's interesting because I don't love the movie, but I admire a lot about it, particularly in the sense that it doesn't really do what you think it's going to do. In the way you think it's going to do it. It's not as straightforward as perhaps you would think. Even setting I don't want to go too much into it, because the central setup of the film is sort of a red herring in a way, because it becomes something a little bit different when the reasoning why people are so upset about porn being made. It's something a little different than I think what you would initially think it is. I like the way that they do that. They have a lot of the tropes in there. They have the last girl. They have a lot of the things that I guess people would consider I don't know, classic or necessary. I don't know what they would, but it's an unusual film, and I do wonder who, if you're offended by the gore, okay, well then you're not going to like the movie. If you're offended by the sex, okay, well you're not going to like
the movie. Yeah.
The movie. Or it's like how are you okay with both? Or I mean, it's a film that kind of exists between genres, and I think that can kind of be a little problematic when you try to find an audience for it, because the audience almost has to find it as well.
Yes. So now it is at this point of our discussion that I announced that it would be remiss of us if we did not point out that this is an A24 film.
Yeah, but it's not. but with that said, it's not an elevated horror A24 film. It's closer to if you saw Red Rocket earlier this year,
yep,
which I didn't particularly like.
I didn't either.
Well, this is, and actually I like this more than Red Rocket, but is that sort of, there is that element in there, the Spring Breakers element, sort of Zola, I guess you could go. A24 occasionally does films that are focused on people who work in the porn industry or prostitutes or
right,
whatnot, and that's kind of where these, at least the first part of this film, fits in. I mean, Tarantino films eventually found audiences. So, and I don't know that I would call this a Tarantino film, but I think it's a film Tarantino would admire.
Yes,
I think it has a lot of the genres that he, and that's what's weird about it, is it's just the combination of all the genres. You usually have, it's not that. I mean, exploitation films weren't always about one thing. If you have a Nazi exploitation film, it wasn't just about Nazis. It had to be about Nazis who were, doing perfect science experiments or something. There's always some crossover,
right?
But typically, this almost moves from one genre to the next rather than being combined. It almost just kind of shifts.
Yeah, and again, it's meta in that it addresses that, the movie just can't change. They literally uttered those words about their movie.
Yeah.
And it's the question, of course, is why not? Well, you apply that question to the film at large, is, well, why can't it? Well, it can. The question is, can the audiences make that switch with you? And so it is not about what a filmmaker can or can't do. It is about whether that filmmaker can do it in a way that allows the audience to make that turn with them.
Yes. Does it work?
Does it work?
Can you? Yeah.
I think it mostly works here.
Yeah, I agree.
I like I said, if you'd watch, like I said, it was very weird. So from the trailer, it's like, oh, there's a Boogie Nights thing going on, and there's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing going on. And that's not completely inaccurate, but it does feel like two sections stuck together with that middle pivot event. And then instead of this weird mesh of, people are getting picked off while filming, or during the filming of a porn, you know what I mean? So you're right, instead of the integration, it's this divide between the two. And that, if it was integrated, it would be easier for audiences to accept that huge big swath, because sex and violence are often commingled, but they're not often just stuck together, back to back.
They're different. Yeah, they're separated here, really, to a great extent.
And so I don't necessarily think it's the subject matter that will put people off. It will be the construction. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the subject matter is going to put some people off. But if someone's willing to go in and go, I don't have a problem with sex and I don't have a problem with violence, their problem might be the movie's a little weird. Yeah. And that I think is going to be the problem.
And it is, and it's shot in some crazy ways sometimes. There's one scene, there's an old woman, she's it's all in red, and it's oversaturated, and she's almost blown out. And it really reminded me of old black and white films. I mean, there's some interest,
well, that was it. That was in front of the van.
Yes.
And at least that had an explanation.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's still very stylized.
Yes.
Like there wasn't like a really good explanation for why but yeah, no, but I think, there is some interesting stuff just on a cinematic level here. That, I mean, the easiest thing to do is to look at this and be like, oh, it's just straight up trash and garbage. But, for some people, that's exactly what they want it to be, by the way.
True.
But there is some filmmaking and some, there is some skill that's being applied here. That, if you care about that aspect, it's there.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not without its appeal, but it's you have to go into it knowing that you're gonna have to work at it. I think, or you're gonna have to realize early that you're gonna have to work at it. So that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think it bad. I think Mia Goth is great. Brittany Snow is great. Jenny Ortega is great. I mean, all three of the females are great in the roles that they inhabit in this film. And it's just it's just a little bit of a strange construct to kind of wrap your head around. But I think if you can do it, you can enjoy a lot. No, this is not a great film. But it's a good film.
And it's one that might appeal to people just slightly outside of what they would think is the target market.
Right.
Like you don't. And it's also strange because some of the violence in this is really over the top, and then some of it is barely shown.
Yeah.
So it's kind of,
it is weird. It makes you wonder if they cut more violence than sex for the R rating. Makes you wonder if there was an NC-17 thrown about.
Yeah, I guess, because I mean, all the deaths are pretty brutal, but some of them are shown more than others.
Yes.
And I joked in my review that Dario Argento would be very impressed. There's a particular scene involving an eyeball that seems very Dario Argento. Anyway, and everyone probably now is going to be waiting for that is. If they understand that reference, they will probably know exactly. Anyway, but also, I mean, this is like a Rob Zombie meets. It's an Italian art film in a way, because Rob Zombie, of course, in the past is obsessed over kind of the hillbilly sort of horror stuff, and I think that's all here. But there is that art element as well. So yeah, it's an interesting.
And the reason I brought up A24 was because I don't think you're not going to get Focus or Lionsgate to make this. Maybe Lionsgate,
probably not.
Maybe Legendary.
Probably not. Yeah, but maybe, but you're right. You're probably right. At least, I mean, I think there's a lot of smaller studios. I think
Uh,
IFC, you can see what's going
Bloomhouse
on.
might have tried
Yeah,
to work it. They'd have considered it, I think. But I think
but
other than that, there's no one else that's just going to kind of let a wacky script like this just kind of be like, yeah, let's shoot and see what we get and go from there. And I think A24
well,
is the one
yeah, they did
that's
that,
going to take
and
that throw.
not only that, they've already shot a prequel.
You were saying that I had not heard.
Yeah, there's a because they were doing this in lockdown. The thought was, well, if we're gonna be locked in and not be able to do much, why don't we just shoot a sequel? And so that's what they did.
But it's a prequel,
Or a prequel,
and that
and
means
there's a sequel.
that means we get more Mia Goth.
That would be the yes, because
So
otherwise, it's either either that or the couple.
you didn't check the credits list. So we get
What do
more
you mean?
Mia Goth. We get more Mia Goth. That's what I say.
Well,
Yes,
no,
it's about the couple, but we get more Mia Goth. So we'll see. Yeah. So no, like I said, it's weird to try to decide whether to tell people to see it. Because it's just a weird thing to try to tell people whether or not they want to see it. It just is. But it's I think if you're willing to be challenged as a viewer, just in terms of construction, if you already know you can handle the material, if you're willing to take a leap on the way it's put together, I think you can get something out of this. But like I said, I don't think this isn't a wide recommend. You can't just recommend this to anybody.
No, because they're going to have to be comfortable with softcore porn, somewhat stereotypical racial archetypes, and then throw in the horror aspect of it. Yeah, so it's but but those people exist, I'm sure, and I think
they do.
There is an environment for this sort of film, but it does definitely. I mean, it was made for cheap. It's probably not going to make a ton of money.
It doesn't really have to.
But yeah. So
yeah, it was. I mean, there was probably 10, 12 people in the theater that I saw it at on Friday. So it was. I mean, I honestly did kind of think that when I was looking, I was like, well, I'm going to wind up being the only person in the theater. And I was not. And that surprised me a little bit. I don't know what ticket sales looked like in other screenings, because I saw it at 1:20 in the afternoon. So I didn't even see a night screening, which is where I thought I was going to wind up, just because it's like, well, they're not going to show this till after 6 or whatever. So, but no, there were earlier screenings, and I'll be interested to see what the box office does. I think that's going to be an interesting story, regardless of whether it's high or low. I think you're going to be able to look at it and pick something out of that about acceptance on this film. So it'll be interesting. So that is X in theaters right now. This week we have 2 screenings that we're going to hit. One is The Lost City with Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum, and Brad Pitt. And Thursday, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
With Michelle Yeoh.
Which I'm really excited for.
I watched the trailer and I cautiously optimistic. I think that film I think that concept can be really, really interesting, or a huge, big old muddled train wreck. And I want it to be the former, not the latter. So
did you enjoy Swiss Army Man?
I did enjoy Swiss Army Man. Amazingly enough.
It's the same director, so that's kind of
where
my optimism comes from.
Well, that's good. I know that's good, but yes, Swiss Army Man is not for everybody either. So, but no, I feel a little better. No, I'm interested to look. I'm not pessimistic on that film like I am some other films that we're going to wind up seeing and have seen recently. But no, I was like that one could go either way. So So yeah, so we've got those coming up. And we've got films. Man, we got films coming all over the place. Don't we have one next week? I think. No, we do not. Nope, just those two this week. That's not terrible though. That's not terrible at all. Oh, I'll be appearing on Cat Stuff again soon, so that'll be fun. If you have not checked out the Matinee Heroes over on YouTube, their game show Cast Off is a wonderful game show where you get to recast a movie and compete to have bragging rights against the poor person that you may or may not have beaten. So that was interesting. I recently recast Spider-Man No Way Home, which I found insulting since it was still in theaters, that we had to recast 3 Spider-Men, but I did it. So we've got The Lost City coming up. We have Everything Everywhere All at Once coming up, which means that next week we should probably have Morbius because it comes out on the 1st. So I'm looking for that trailer to drop. There's a lot of good stuff coming, and it's going to be great. So until we get to those, don't forget to like us, follow us on social media at VS Movie Podcast. You know the drill. Click subscribe if you're watching My Ugly Mug on YouTube. That would be great as well. And until next time, I am Mark. That is Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
You guys.
And we'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.